Hello everyone, Grim here, and as you can tell, it's time for me to read you another story. This one is titled, I'm Filipino, and our culture is heavily influenced by the creatures that lurk in the dark. Written by Phaerim, posted to the subreddit r/nosleep. Today I'm going to have a special guest narrating along with me tonight. They go by the name Ban Ban, so please give them a warm welcome. And let's begin. When I was 3, my family migrated to the US. We lived a comfortable life and I had a happy childhood. My parents were a bit superstitious, so we had a few strange traditions, and they would always tell me stories about the kapres, aswangs, Manananggals, tikbalangs, tianaks, and the likes. We moved back to the Philippines when my grandmother got sick. I was only 16 at the time, and I had to readjust to a new way of living. She died 3 years after we moved there, but we decided to stay. My grandmother lived in the province, so everything was completely different from what I was used to. My neighbors would always go back into their homes before dark. There was no town curfews set in place, but they did it anyway. I was taught to say tabi tabi po every time I passed by an anthill or a big tree. Whenever my friend visited, he would always say taopo at the door. We weren't allowed to sweep the floor at night. Basically, there was a long list of things we should or shouldn't do. I never really understood why everyone found these things so important. I just followed along out of respect, but I wouldn't necessarily call myself a believer. So, when I finally moved to the city for college, I was more than ready to live a life without these weird superstitious beliefs. That was a few years ago. I recently graduated with a degree in marketing. I also met my fiancée, Myra, in college, and I was finally ready to take her home to meet the family. I had no debt, and I already had a job lined up for when I got back to the city. Life was good.
Are you sure they're gonna like me?
My fiancé asked as we were driving to the province. They're gonna love you, baby. There's nothing not to love, I reassured her. She gave me a soft smile in return. Myra was born and raised in the Philippines. She never even left the country. We were extremely different, considering I was pretty westernized. We disagreed on a lot of things in the beginning, but we eventually found some middle ground as we learned about each other more. She was more on the conservative side, so a lot of things I was used to bothered her. Let's just say, when she found out I watched porn, there was a lot of screaming, and not the good kind. Maybe a bit of the good kind when the fight ended. But we got past all of that and got to a pretty good place. I was proud of how much our relationship grew. There were a few other strange things about her, but I didn't really mind much. Sometimes in the middle of the night she would go to the bathroom for half an hour or so. I really noticed her get up, but when I did, she would just tell me she had stomach problems. Another thing was how she always wore this weird necklace. She never took it off, not even in the shower or when she went to sleep. But those were just little things I eventually got over. We're here, I said as I parked the car. I unloaded our luggage and headed towards the door of my grandparents' house. My mother greeted me and my father took our bags inside.
Luis, who's this?
My mom inquired upon seeing Myra behind me. Ma, this is Myra, and we have something important to tell you, but we'll need the rest of the family too, I said eagerly. Myra smiled at her and gave her a small wave.
It's nice to meet you, ma'am.
For some reason, my mother didn't look so pleased. She pulled me aside and whispered,
I don't like her, anak. She has no manners.
What are you talking about? She just got here, and you haven't even gotten to know her yet.
Anak, listen to me. That woman will bring nothing but misfortune to us all.
I can't believe you're saying all this right now. At least give her a chance. I walked towards Myra, took her hand, and practically stormed into the house. My whole family was there. My father, brothers, sister, grandfather, cousins, and my aunts and uncles. They all looked surprised to see me drag some unfamiliar woman into the house. Everyone, I'd like you to meet Myra. She is my fiancée, I announced. My announcement received mixed reactions. Mostly confusion. My sister, Clara, was the first one to speak up. She plastered on a huge grin and said,
Well, welcome to the family.
Clara walked over to Myra and intended to give her a hug, but was stopped short.
I'm sorry. I'm not too big on physical contact, what with COVID, monkeypox, and all that. But I do appreciate the gesture.
Myra stated and gave her a smile instead.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Everyone else followed suit with their congratulations, and we ended the day with a family dinner. We had some champagne to celebrate the news of our engagement as well. My mother remained quiet the whole time, but we had a good time nonetheless. Around 3:15 at night, Myra had gone into the bathroom again at some point. I tried to go back to sleep, but I heard a strange, fluttering noise in the backyard. I went outside to investigate. I know, big horror movie trope. The Asian dude goes somewhere alone, dies first. But my life wasn't a movie, so I didn't see the harm. I saw Myra standing behind a wall. It looked like she was observing something. I inched closer to see what she was staring at. What I saw would forever be burned into my memory, like hot iron branding a mark right onto the surface of my brain. I thought it was a chopped up log or something at first, but then I saw the legs, and it started to move ever so slightly. It was the lower half of a human body. I nearly screamed at the sight, but Myra saw me and shoved her hand onto my mouth. She gestured to me to go back inside and lock the door behind us. Once we were inside, she put her finger to her lips as if to say, "Quiet." She then disappeared into the kitchen to grab me a glass of water and help me walk to the bedroom.
Louise, I need you to listen very carefully. What you just saw, you weren't supposed to see that. But there are creatures far beyond our understanding that share this world with us. Sometimes they walk this earth like they're one of our own.
Myra explained this to me as I occupied myself with drinking from my glass.
Look, the province, it's different here. The culture is heavily influenced by superstition. A lot of that culture is lost in the city. It's safer there because of the number of people and the lack of belief, while being superstitious can help the people in the province in some way. Since they know how to ward them off, their belief is also what gives these creatures power.
She continued. So, what was that thing? I asked her, still in shock from the sight that I had seen earlier.
I think you knew. Your parents told you, right? The stories of beautiful women who turn into monsters at night. The ones whose bodies split in half, the upper half going off to feed on its prey.
Manananggal?
Yes. They're one of the more dangerous ones, especially to people like us.
Like us?
We're about to be newlyweds. They usually feed on pregnant women and newlyweds, but they're not limited to that. Sometimes it could just be someone who fell asleep with their window open.
Why newlyweds? Pregnant women make more sense, I guess. I know monsters tend to like fetuses.
I'm not sure. There are a lot of different iterations. One of the more popular ones states that they were left at the altar, so they seek out new grooms or grooms to be, I think. That's why your mother wasn't too keen on the idea of us getting married. She knows whose the Manananggal is, probably trying to protect it.
Why would she try to protect one? They're monsters.
Not really. It's more complicated than that. You see, they're human at first, or at their core would be more accurate. It's kind of like a parasite or an infection.
What do you mean?
Legend says there's a chick inside of a Manananggal. It's created inside another Manananggal and given to a woman to eat to pass on the infection.
How do you kill one?
It's not that easy. You can't kill the actual Manananggal because the chick would still be alive. You can, however, get rid of the chick and therefore get rid of the infection. But again, it's not that easy.
So we're just gonna have to find out who it is and get rid of the chick?
If it's someone your mother knows, then she probably knows this method, but hasn't been able to execute it. You have to catch the upper half of the Manananggal, tie it upside down to a tray, and make it vomit out the chick. I can see why he hasn't been able to do it yet, but with the proper help and materials, she can probably pull it off.
Do you have the proper materials?
Well, not yet, but I can gather them. I'll need help from an albulario and maybe 2 other people.
I had a difficult time processing all this information. Honestly, I couldn't even believe I was having this conversation. I thought I would just wake up the next day and this would all have just been some terrible nightmare, but it wasn't. The next day, right after breakfast, Myra was asking around about an albulario, some sort of witch doctor who practices folk healing. My mum was still avoiding me. I almost wanted to go right up to her face and tell her that I knew her secret. But Myra told me I should hold off on telling my mother until she fixed the problem. I know that my mother was just trying to protect me, but I couldn't get over the fact that she was also trying to protect this thing. By midnight, we were stalking out the little shed we had in the backyard to reveal the identity of the Manananggal. I thought I was shocked the first time, but to say I was unprepared for what I saw tonight would be an understatement.
Who is that? Do you know her?
Myra asked me. Yes, it's my grandmother. Well, what an amazing story. It was indeed enjoyable to narrate, and I had a lot of fun narrating with Ban Ban in this. You'll hear her again. We've got 2 more of these to come through. So her voice will become probably a staple in the channel, knowing how things can work. But alternately, outside of everything here, I thought I'd give you guys a heads up. If you like this, you can like and subscribe and maybe turn on the notifications to be notified on videos that I may release. But outside of that, I also thought that I would make it a bit easier for you if you do not know what a Manananggal is. There is a video from a friend of mine that explains that, so I've linked it in the description below. Feel free to go watch that video before the next video is uploaded. That way at least you'll have an idea as to what a Manananggal is and probably get a bit more into the story. But ultimately, outside of everything here, I don't want to hold you up for too long. I've talked a bit too much already. So, as always, be safe wherever you are, and this is Grim, and I'm signing off.